Dear brothers and sisters, I know the situation is dire. Let me remind you on how our world came to existence. In the beginning, the great baker created the dough. The dough was without form and void, laying in the dark depth of the mixing bowl, and the spirit of the great baker was hovering over it. And the great baker reached into the dough, formed it into huge spheres, and placed them in the sky. The great baker called those spheres moons, and by the touch of his divine sweaty hands, they became both salty and sweet. As the great baker saw that the moons were dripping and losing their divine dough, he reached into his chest, and he ripped his fiery heart out, placing it amongst the moons. And his fiery heart came to be known as the sun, and it baked the moons, granting them their crunchy, tasty crust. And the great baker saw that it was good. As the great baker had created the moons and the sun, there was no one to marvel at his divine creation. So he ripped the dimples of his face and formed them into cute little creatures, and he called the creatures unicorns. And the great baker said to the unicorns, "Go forth and smile. You are free to eat tiny pieces of my delicious moons, but you must do so sparingly." And the unicorns went forth and smiled, and they ate tiny pieces of the delicious moons sparingly. And the great baker called the tiny pieces cookies. But the years passed on, and greed planted its seed into the hearts of the unicorns. They closed their ears for the commandments of the great baker, devouring more and more of the delicious moons they were living at. As the last piece of the last moon was gone, the unicorns fell into the depth. At the brink of their demise, they sent their pleadings to the great baker, begging him to spare their souls. And the great baker heard the mourning of the unicorns, and he became wrathful. And the great baker said, "You shall live, but you shall be banished from the surface of my delicious moons. You shall live on a planet made of toil, by the sweat of your brow you will eat your food, and never taste cookies again." And the unicorns lived on a planet made of toil, and never should they taste cookies again. As the great baker saw that the unicorns had not only lost their cookies, but with their cookies their smile, a glimpse of mercy flashed inside of him, and he spoke to the unicorns again. "Every 1,000 years, a unicorn shall be born with the lactose intolerance. The chosen one to receive this gift shall be a unicorn, whose love for cookies is only surpassed by his generosity. I shall send him on a quest to the moon, which I will create anew, and bring the cookies back to his people, sparingly. He must prove his worth and never show a frown, for the moon shall be guarded by my servant, a terrible monster. The chosen one shall be known as the Moonicorn." And the unicorns thanked the great baker for his mercy, and every 1,000 years they should be saved by the Moonicorn.
Moonicorn Cookie Quiz!